Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. This time we're going to be exploring New Year's Eve traditions, those rituals we all take part in, whether it's watching the ball drop or setting those resolutions.
Yeah, it's such an interesting mix of cultural stuff, personal beliefs, and a bit of that, age-old wisdom.
Yeah, exactly. We all seem to crave it this time of year.
Right. It seems like more and more these days, people are trying to figure out the deeper meaning behind all these different practices, like why do we do what we do,
Hmm,
resolutions, gift giving, even what we wear to ring in the new year.
absolutely. So, you've worked with a lot of people over the years who are trying to navigate these ideas, especially around the new year.
Hmm.
I remember you telling me a story about one client, like a real go-getter, successful, who was totally fixated on manifesting something very specific.
Oh, yeah. It was actually my last appointment of the year.
Mm.
And this guy, let's call him John, walks in. Very successful businessman, high-powered, impatient, you know the type.
Okay, I can picture him.
And he was totally convinced that he had done everything right to manifest his deepest desire, but just nothing seemed to work.
Everything. Wow, what did everything look like for him?
I mean, we're praying affirmations, visualizations, the whole nine yards. He even traveled to those, like, supposed power spots
Hmm.
and rubbed those lucky monuments, convinced it would give his manifestation a boost.
Wow, he was all in. So what was he missing?
Well, that's the thing. He wouldn't even tell me what it was he was trying to manifest.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely convinced that saying it out loud would somehow jinx the whole process.
Interesting. That reminds me of that old superstition about not speaking your wishes aloud, right?
Wow.
There's something almost sacred about keeping those dreams close to the heart. But does staying silent actually make a difference when it comes to manifestation?
It's a great question, and there are so many different schools of thought on this. There's this ancient belief that our energy is projected outward, and words, especially like the words charged with emotion, they carry a lot more weight than just those silent thoughts. Think of them like amplified vibrations that can speed up the manifestation process.
So does that mean we should be shouting our desires from the rooftops?
Not necessarily. Context and your audience, that's key. Think of it this way. Sharing your aspirations with trusted friends and family, people who genuinely support you, that can actually amplify that positive energy. It can even attract those helpful circumstances. But if you're surrounded by a lot of negativity or jealousy, well, that can create energetic blocks.
So choose your confidants wisely. It makes sense. But going back to John, what was it that he wanted so badly that he wouldn't even say out loud?
Well, his deepest desire was to have a son. He already had like three daughters, and he was just convinced that his family wouldn't be complete without a male heir.
Ah, I see. So that age-old, societal pressure,
Yeah.
it's amazing how deeply rooted those cultural expectations can really shape our deepest desires, even drive us to these kind of elaborate manifestation rituals.
Oh, absolutely. And it's fascinating to see how these expectations have played out throughout history. Haven't there been all sorts of traditions and beliefs about predicting the gender of a baby based on, let's say, the mother's
Oh,
appearance?
totally. Like if a woman carried high, it was going to be a girl. If she craved salty food, it meant a boy was on the way. All those old wives' tales.
Yeah.
But I know there's also like a more spiritual interpretation of this too, right?
Yes, in some spiritual traditions, there's this belief that souls actually choose their gender based on the specific lessons they need to learn in a lifetime. It's about the soul's journey, not just the physical.
That's such a fascinating perspective. So if a family ends up having, mostly one gender, does that signify something specific in those belief systems?
Well, some interpretations might suggest that it could point to unresolved issues or like some imbalances, in how a parent relates to the opposite sex. Now, it's important to remember this isn't about placing blame, it's more about recognizing those potential patterns and exploring those dynamics within the family.
Right. It's about understanding those deeper layers, not judging them.
Yeah.
So back to John, the father who desperately wanted a son.
Mm.
What advice did you give him?
I really encouraged him to shift his focus. Instead of concentrating on what he felt like was missing, I suggested he start appreciating the amazing daughters that he already had.
Hmm.
I wanted him to reconnect with them, to really engage in their lives rather than being, so fixated on having a son.
Did he embrace that change of perspective? I mean, it sounds like a pretty big shift.
It took time, but he gradually started rebuilding those relationships with his daughters, started attending their events, really showing up for them. And, he started rediscovering the joy of being a present father to the incredible girls he already had.
It seems like sometimes letting go of those rigid expectations, the ones we think will bring us happiness. It's like the real key to finding true fulfillment.
You hit the nail on the head. And, it's the perfect segue into another aspect of New Year's Eve. It's traditionally seen as a time for, cleansing negative energy and inviting abundance into the year ahead. There's all sorts of practical things people do for this, from decluttering their homes to, like, being mindful about the gifts they give and receive.
You're right. There is this whole practical side to it. And you know what? That reminds me, we should probably dive into those specifics of, cleansing rituals. We touched on decluttering, but what exactly should we be getting rid of? And then there's this whole thing about colors and what to wear for good luck. I've heard so many different things. What's the real deal with that?
Yeah, yeah. The colors, they can vary a lot depending on the tradition that you're following. But the underlying principle is always the same. It's about, you know, symbolically shedding the old, like to make way for the new, like hitting that reset button, on an energetic level.
I love that. So it's not just cleaning your closet. It's about creating that space for new energy. That's really cool. But what about gift giving? Is there a special way to approach it that aligns with this idea of inviting abundance?
Well, think about the energy you want to bring into your own life and the lives of your loved ones. Choose gifts that are meaningful, useful, or even inspiring. It's not about how much you spend, it's about the intention behind the gift itself.
So even something small and heartfelt can carry that energy of abundance and good wishes.
Absolutely. It's all about the thought, the feeling that you infuse into that act of giving. That's what really matters.
You know, this is so insightful, but I feel like we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to unpack here, especially when it comes to like the history, the cultural significance behind these New Year's
Oh,
traditions.
you're right. There's so much more to explore. For example, did you know that in many cultures there are specific foods that are traditionally eaten on New Year's Eve for good luck and prosperity?
Oh yeah, I've heard about that, like eating black-eyed peas for good luck in the South.
Mhm.
But I'd love to learn more about these food traditions from around the world. What else is out there?
Well, in some Asian cultures, long noodles are eaten to symbolize longevity, whereas round fruits, like oranges or pomegranates, they represent wealth and fortune because of their shape. And in Spain and even some Latin American countries, people eat 12 grapes at midnight, one for each month of the coming year for good luck and prosperity.
Wow, 12 grapes at midnight. That sounds like a challenge. But I love the symbolism behind it, setting intentions for each month. It's like edible goal setting.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of these traditions. They're not just empty rituals, they're a way to connect with something bigger than ourselves, to tap into this collective desire for renewal and positive change that seems to resonate with people all over the world.
It makes you realize why so many people are drawn to these traditions. Even if they don't necessarily know all the, intricate meanings behind them, it's like we're all searching for these ways to create a better future for ourselves and the world.
I think you've got it. And the simple act of, setting intentions, whether it's through a formal ritual or just a quiet moment of reflection, it can have this ripple effect that extends far beyond ourselves.
This conversation has been so eye-opening. You've given us a lot to think about as we head into this new year. I feel like there's still so much more to explore.
We've only just begun to scratch the surface, but we'll have to leave our listeners with a few lingering questions and hopefully a spark of curiosity about the magic and meaning woven into these New Year's Eve traditions. Stay tuned.
It's really interesting how so many of these New Year's traditions, they blend those cultural beliefs with practical actions. Like they're bridging that gap between like the symbolic and the tangible.
Yeah, for sure. We were talking about like decluttering earlier, and I'm thinking about how like in so many cultures, the end of the year is seen as a time to like cleanse your space, literally and figuratively.
Exactly. It's all about creating that sense of order, that clarity in your physical environment, which, can help clear your mind too for the new year.
So it's not like just tidying up. It's about clearing out like any stagnant energy that might be hanging around.
That's the idea. Some people, they even go as far as like smudging their homes with like sage or incense to purify the space. I've heard about that, yeah. It's supposed to like banish any negative vibes that are hanging around. Okay, so we're like clearing out the old, making space for the new. And then there's that tradition of wearing certain colors for good luck.
Yeah.
This is where I always get a little confused because I've heard so many different things about what colors to wear. What's the real story there?
Yeah, so As we mentioned before, like a lot depends on the specific cultural tradition you're following. In some parts of Latin America, for example, wearing yellow on New Year's Eve, it's believed to attract, prosperity and joy.
Interesting. So it's not even just about avoiding bad luck. It's about like actively inviting in good things into your life. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then, in some Asian cultures, red is associated with luck and happiness. So
Yeah.
you often see people, wearing red clothing or, accessories for those New Year celebrations.
This is what I love about, diving into all these traditions. There's so much diversity and richness.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that there's really no one right way to celebrate. It's all about finding what resonates with you personally, and adapting those customs to fit your own beliefs and values.
Okay, so let's go back to something you talked about earlier, this belief that like souls choose their gender based on the lessons that they need to learn in a lifetime. Can you elaborate on that a bit more? That really like caught
Yeah,
my attention.
sure. In some spiritual traditions, it's believed that our souls are on this continuous journey of, growth and evolution, and each lifetime is seen as an opportunity to learn these like specific lessons and develop certain aspects of ourselves.
So the choice of gender is seen as a way to like facilitate those soul lessons.
Yeah, that's one interpretation. For instance, some believe that souls who choose to incarnate as females in a particular lifetime, they might be focusing on developing those qualities like nurturing empathy or intuition.
And those who choose to be born male, like, might be focusing on qualities like strength, assertiveness, or leadership.
That's one way to look at it. It's not about saying that these qualities are, exclusive to one gender or the other, but rather that, each might provide a different set of challenges and opportunities for soul growth.
So it's not about like rigid stereotypes, but more about the like energetic blueprint that each gender embodies.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that, these are just interpretations. Ultimately, that soul's journey, it's a deeply personal and mysterious one.
You're right. It's fascinating to think about all those different interpretations, but in the end, we can only like speculate. The true nature of that soul journey remains a mystery.
That's part of what makes it so intriguing. It pushes us to, grapple with those bigger questions about, life, our purpose, even the nature of reality itself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like these traditions are like gateways to explore not just our cultural heritage, but also, our spiritual and even philosophical beliefs.
Absolutely. And that exploration, it can be incredibly enriching and empowering. It allows us to tap into that collective wisdom that's been passed down, through generations. We're connecting to something much, much larger than ourselves.
Speaking of like collective wisdom, I'm really curious to hear more about those New Year's Eve food traditions that we touched on earlier. You mentioned that like in some cultures, long noodles symbolize longevity.
Yeah.
What other symbolic foods should we be aware of?
Oh, there are so many. Food plays such a huge role in New Year's celebrations all over the world. For example, in some European countries, it's considered lucky to eat pork on New Year's Day because, pigs root forward as they forage. So it symbolizes progress and, moving ahead in the new year.
I never thought about it that way. So it's not just about like what you eat,
Yeah.
but also the symbolic meaning attached to the food.
Precisely. And these symbolic meanings, they often go back to like, those ancient beliefs and practices related to, agriculture. For instance, those round fruits like pomegranates and oranges, they're often associated with wealth and abundance because, they resemble coins.
Now that you mention it, I've also heard that eating greens, like, collard greens or cabbage, is supposed to bring financial luck.
Yes, the green color is associated with like money and prosperity in many cultures. It's like eating your way to a prosperous new year.
I love that. What a fun and delicious way to like incorporate those beliefs into your celebration. What other interesting food traditions have you come across?
Well, in Japan, for example, it's traditional to eat a special type of mochi, which is, a rice cake. It's called kagami mochi for good luck and happiness. And it's actually like shaped like a mirror. So it symbolizes, reflection and that opportunity for like self-improvement in the new year.
That's beautiful. I love how these traditions they weave together, practicality with symbolism.
Me too. They remind us that even the simplest act, like, sharing a meal with your loved ones, uh, infused with, that deeper meaning and intention. It's about being mindful and present in those moments.
We've talked a lot about like intention setting and how to phrase our New Year's wishes in a positive and present tense kind of way. Do you have any other advice for, making our intentions more effective? Like what else can we do to really like harness that energy?
One really powerful technique is visualization. Try to vividly imagine yourself already living, the reality you desire. Like feel the emotions, experience those sensations, really engage with the activities that align with your intention.
So it's not like just thinking about it. It's about like feeling it in your body as if it's like already happening.
Exactly. The more vividly you can imagine it, the stronger the energetic imprint you create.
And the idea is that this helps like attract those experiences into your reality.
That's right. It's about aligning your energy with the frequency of your desired outcome.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. It's like we have this incredible ability to like shape our reality through our thoughts, our feelings, and even our actions.
In a way, we do. We're not just, passive recipients of fate. We're active creators of our own experiences, and realizing that can be incredibly empowering.
It really can. It like gives us a sense of like agency and responsibility for the lives that we're creating.
And this brings us back to, all those New Year's traditions we've been discussing. They're not just about celebrating a date on the calendar. They're about consciously choosing the energy that we want to bring into the new year. They're about connecting with those, deepest desires and setting intentions that can really shape our reality.
I feel like I'm starting to see these New Year's traditions in a whole new light. There's so much depth and richness there.
Me too. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. With each layer, we uncover those new insights and perspectives.
Okay, before we wrap up part two, I have to ask one more question.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that John, your client who so desperately wanted a son, he eventually found fulfillment by connecting with his daughters.
Yeah.
What do you think was like the key to that transformation?
I think it was a combination of things. He had to let go of that societal pressure, to have a male heir. He needed to challenge that limiting belief that his family wasn't complete without a son.
So it was about like questioning those ingrained cultural expectations.
Exactly. And it was also about shifting his focus. Instead of fixating on what he thought was missing, he began to appreciate those unique qualities and gifts of his daughters. That's when he realized that he already had everything he needed to experience, that genuine happiness as a father.
It sounds like he had to like redefine what it meant to be a successful and fulfilled parent, to like create his own definition, not just accept the one handed to him, by society.
Precisely. And that's a powerful reminder for all of us. True fulfillment often comes from appreciating and nurturing what we already have rather than constantly, striving for what we think we lack. It's about finding contentment and gratitude in the present moment.
Wow, it's such an important message, especially as we, head into this new year. This whole conversation has been so insightful. You've given us so much to consider as we think about our own intentions and how we want to approach the year ahead.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and I have a feeling we've only just scratched the surface of this topic. There's always more to discover and explore.
I completely agree. But for now, we'll have to leave our listeners with a few lingering questions and hopefully a renewed sense of wonder about the magic and meaning, woven into those New Year's Eve traditions. Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll explore the power of intention setting and discover how to like harness the energy of the new year to create the life we truly desire.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into New Year's traditions, I'm thinking about how this time of year like naturally pushes us to look back, at the past and then set our sights on the future.
Right, yeah. There's this almost like universal urge to kind of hit that reset button.
Yeah.
As the new year approaches, it's like a built-in time for reflection and renewal.
And that kind of brings us to the power of intention setting. It's about, making those conscious choices about the direction you want your life to take.
Right.
But how is that different from like just making a list of resolutions? We all know those usually, fizzle out by February.
You've got a point. Resolutions tend to focus on, those external goals or behaviors, whereas intentions, they go like a little deeper. They're about cultivating, that inner state of being and aligning yourself with the energy of what you truly want to experience.
Okay, so it's less about I'm going to hit the gym every day and more about like I'm going to prioritize my health and well-being. It's about the feeling
Mhm.
behind the action, not just the action itself.
Exactly. Yeah. When you shift that mindset and you focus on, the feeling you want to embody, you're much more likely to attract those positive experiences into your life. It's like setting an internal compass that guides you throughout the year.
That's a great analogy, but I have to like play devil's advocate here for a sec.
Yeah.
Is there like a risk of focusing too much on like those internal feelings and neglecting those concrete actions that, actually create change?
That's a great question. It's not about ignoring action altogether.
Yeah.
It's more about letting your intentions inform your actions. When you're clear about those feelings you want to cultivate, your actions naturally become more aligned with those feelings. You start making, those choices that support your overall well-being, rather than just, checking things off that to-do list.
It's about like finding that balance, between that inner intention and that outer action. Like they work together.
Exactly. And when you set intentions with like real clarity and conviction, you're tapping into like a powerful force. It can truly help you manifest those dreams.
Okay. I'm starting to see how intention setting can be like so much more powerful than just making like a list of resolutions. But how do we actually go about setting those intentions? Is there like a right way to do it?
Well, there are many different approaches, but here's like a simple one that I find really helpful. First find a quiet space where you can reflect without, distractions. Think about the different areas of your life you want to focus on, relationships, career, health, spirituality, whatever feels like most important to you right now.
So it's about like taking stock of where you are now and visualizing like where you want to go.
Yeah, yeah. It's like taking inventory of your life. Then for each area, ask yourself, what feeling do I want to experience more of in this part of my life? Do you want more joy, more love, abundance, peace? Really hone in on those core emotions.
So we're like identifying those underlying feelings we want to cultivate rather than, getting caught up in those like specific goals.
I like that. It's a powerful shift in perspective.
Mm.
Once you identified those feelings, start phrasing your intentions in the present tense, like as if they're already happening. For example, instead of saying I want to be more joyful, you would say I am filled with joy and gratitude. Or instead of like I want to attract more abundance, you would say I am attracting abundant opportunities into my life.
And I'm guessing it's like important to, to use positive language, avoid those don't and won't words.
Absolutely. Focus on what you're inviting in, not what you're trying to avoid. And a key tip I always give people is to, write down your intentions and keep them somewhere you can see them, regularly. It's a simple but powerful way to like stay connected to your chosen path throughout the year.
So it's about like actively engaging with those intentions, not just setting them and forgetting about them.
I love that. But I'm still curious about something you mentioned earlier, this idea of aligning ourselves with the energy of what we want to manifest. What exactly does that mean?
Well, it's about becoming a vibrational match for your desires. Think of it this way. Everything in the universe is energy, vibrating at different frequencies. The law of attraction suggests that like attracts like.
So if we want to attract more abundance, we need to cultivate an energy of abundance within ourselves.
Precisely. It's not just about like thinking positive thoughts. It's about truly embodying those
Mhm.
feelings. It's about feeling grateful for what you already have, being generous with your time and resources, and expecting those good things to come your way.
It's like tuning your inner radio station to the frequency of what you want to receive. That's a great way to put it. And the more you practice, aligning yourself with those positive frequencies, the more likely you are to attract those experiences that match those vibrations.
This is incredible. It's like we have this power to like shape our reality through our thoughts, our feelings, our actions.
In a way, we do. We're not just, those passive recipients of fate. We're those active creators of our own experiences. And realizing that can be profoundly empowering.
It really can. And it reminds us that we have, responsibility for the life that we're creating.
And this brings us back, full circle to all those New Year's traditions that we've been, exploring. They're not just about celebrating like this start of a new year. They're about consciously choosing that energy that we want to bring into, into that year, they're about aligning ourselves with those deepest desires and setting like those powerful intentions that can truly shape our reality.
Right. This has been such an enlightening conversation. You've given us so much to think about as we, approach this new year.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, as you step into the new year, choose your intentions wisely. Let them be a reflection of your heart's true desires, and trust that the universe will conspire to support you in their manifestation.
What a beautiful thought to end on. As we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage you to take some time to reflect on what you've learned. Consider the intentions you want to set for the year ahead, and most importantly, believe in your own power to create a life that is truly joyful, abundant, and meaningful. Happy New Year, everyone.